Welcome back to the Seriously Doe podcast. I'm Ken Platt.
I'm Shane Haffey.
And we are elated that you are here today. We didn't pick a word today.
We forgot to look at the thesaurus.
We forgot to get to the thesaurus, but elated is what we're going with. I think that's what we went with last time. So we're going to use that for this time as well. So we are happy that you're back with us. You guys have been just phenomenal. Again, we love your feedback. Please keep following us on Facebook and on Spotify and, wherever you are, just subscribe. Hit the like, share it with your friends and family, and leave some reviews. Like if you want to give a 5-star, something like that, we really appreciate that. And hopefully you're enjoying the show. You're baking along with us, and just keep that feedback coming. So I have a couple corrections.
Yep.
Today, and it is. I talked to my mom. Hi, Mom. By the way, and because she's a faithful follower of the Seriously Doe podcast.
Yep. Thanks, Ken's mom.
So I was talking to her the other day, and she goes, Ken, the word that you were using was the wrong word. And I was like, what word's that, Mom? And she said, mastication. And I go, yeah. I was like, that's when you put the sugar in with the fruit and stuff. And she says, no, that's not what that means. And I said, well, what's it mean? She goes, mastication is chewing. Like when you chew something, that is mastication. And you're masticating. And I was like, oh, yeah. She goes, the word you're looking for is macerating. And I was like, yeah, those are two different words, but they're very similar.
They're very similar. So we were wrong lots of times.
Yes, lots of times. So we're sorry if we upset anybody or offended anybody or just made your day. Yeah.
But it stays true. We like macerated fruit that we get to masticate.
This sounds very good.
Okay.
Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah.
Now. That's
I get in trouble doing that.
That's a lot of M's. Ask to shit. Yeah.
Yep.
You'll get mixed up with that.
So we need a thesaurus and a dictionary to double check ourselves.
Not only that, but I can tell nobody. Not only that, but I can't even keep my cookbook straight.
Yeah.
I don't even own The Joy of Cooking. I don't even know why. Because when you said that to me last episode, I said, I use The Joy of Cooking. And you're like, oh, yeah, with Julia Childs. And I agreed with you, but I had no idea what you were talking about.
Right. I was like, I don't think she does a lot of baking. That's new to
me. And then you said something about the inaccuracies of... Did you tell me about the inaccuracies of the recipes in there, or was my mom said?
Me. Yeah.
So my mom said, no, I don't use The Joy of Cooking because those recipes, a lot of them weren't tested.
Yeah.
And that's what came out in her biography or whatever, is that the recipes in The Joy of Cooking weren't tested. But that's cooking; it's not baking. Right. So I don't use The Joy of Cooking to bake. I actually use Better Homes and Gardens.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to, and that's one that has a really cool red and white gingham print on the front of it, and I've used that for years for a lot of things.
It used to be a main wedding gift, for new couples. That would be a gift that people would get a lot of times. Just to get them started. It has all the recipes and stuff like that our grandmas and moms use.
I actually think that that's when I got it.
Yeah.
I think I got it, but I've been using that one for years, and I actually referenced it for today's bake. I didn't use it for today's bake, but I referenced it, and I'll go there first to see what the recipes are that are in that book. And then I'll look it over and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like how that looks or like how that's gonna play out, and then I'll go do something else.
Yeah.
So those are our two corrections for this week. So sorry, yes, whatever, and thank you for listening anyway. Hopefully we didn't lose any listeners to that. If you did, then
it was thrilling.
It was
thrilling information.
Thrilling, hilarious. So, all right. So I just got back from vacation.
How'd that go?
Family quality time is more how it can be. Vacations, I think, can more be described as, relaxing times and quiet, and you get to just chillax and all that. But that's not what this was.
Especially with little kids.
No, yeah. So for those of you who know, I have a 12, a 10, a 6, and a 2-year-old, and we all crammed into little hotel rooms together. So that's a lot of fun. 6 humans in one hotel room and all our stuff. But we had a good time. We went to Virginia Beach for a couple of days, and we had some time in the ocean on the beach. And then we did what I really love to do is I like to go visit historical sites.
Yeah.
And so we went to down by Virginia Beach. We went north a little bit to Williamsburg, Colonial Williamsburg. See my new hat. If you're watching if you're watching on YouTube, here's my hat. This is my souvenir hat. I'm so excited to get that.
Yep.
But we went to Colonial Williamsburg. We also went to the Jamestown settlement, so where the English colonists first landed, and then we also went to the site of the first landing. In Virginia Beach, just north of Virginia Beach. And there's a cross there, and there's a whole memorial thing. And there's also 2 lighthouses that were commissioned, but one was commissioned by George Washington himself, and was overseen by Alexander Hamilton. So that's always a lot of fun.
The guy from the musical.
The guy from the musical, yeah. The $10 founding father without a father. Never mind. That's a sickness. Anyways, so I'm off my horse now.
Sorry about that.
So then we went to Jamestown, and at Jamestown they have the settlement, the historical reenactment.
Right.
They have the Native American site, and then they also have the settlement, the fort. So we went into the fort, and I came across. This was awesome. If you follow our Instagram page, you know what I'm about to talk about. Is we came across the baker. And so they had an earthen stove with a wood fire burning in it, and he was feeding it, and right on the table, he was making bread. And I was like, this is perfect. Yeah. I'm going to interview this man for the Seriously Dough podcast. And so I just started asking him about the process. And a couple things I learned, so this is something for all you listeners and all you viewers out there that I want to share with you about how the English settlers made their bread.
Hold on to your teeth for this
one. Hold on to your teeth for this one. I said, so where did you get the yeast? And he said, well, we would get it from England, but usually it would come from the bottom of the ale barrels. So when they would make ale, the yeast would settle to the bottom, and they don't kill the yeast like we do with in our process, because we have to kill the yeast in our bottling process. Otherwise, you know what happens if you don't kill the yeast in the bottling process of beer?
It would probably explode.
Yes, the bottles explode. I had a really unfortunate event that happened to me when I tried to make hard cider a few years ago. And I didn't kill the yeast, and I came home and I smelled apple cider.
Gotta burp those bottles, man.
And I went downstairs, and there was glass and cider everywhere. I was thankful I wasn't there. But anyway, so the yeast was still living, so they would scrape the yeast off the bottom of the ale barrels for the bread. Okay. Then also they would grind. What they would use to grind the flour was stone.
Right.
And so what would happen is sometimes the stones would get into the flour, and you couldn't see them. You couldn't sift through all the flour to get the stones out, especially where they were on the frontier.
Yeah, it would have been coarse ground flour and stuff like that, and those stones would have blended right in.
Yep, and so you can tell, so based on what we said before, hold on to your teeth, is a lot of these settlers ended up with broken teeth because they would bite into bread, and they'd crunch down on a pebble or a stone, and that would be, could you imagine? No dentistry, no...
You gotta love the carbs taking it to that.
You really have to love what you're doing, or starve, which many of them were starving anyway.
Yeah.
It wasn't really it was pretty dramatic, but it wasn't glamorous at all.
Right.
The way the settlers kind of made their mark on the land. So that was just a few things that I learned this past week about baking from the 1600s. Yeah, 1600s.
Very cool.
So I'd rather not go back to that time where we're breaking our teeth on freshly baked bread. But
me either.
So
me either. Yep.
So yeah, you guys.
I didn't have anything nearly as exciting as that. So, but that sounds like I need to go down there one of these days and check it out.
It was cool.
And I think we need to make an earthen oven.
You know what? I think we should do that. Let's make plans. We're gonna make an earthen oven. I'm saying it right now.
In your backyard.
In my backyard. Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna make an earthen oven. We just have to find the clay to make that. It's
got to be somewhere.
I'm sure.
We've got enough Play-Doh between the two of us.
We're baking Play-Doh. We're making bread in our Play-Doh oven that we made. So today we're talking pies.
Happy summer.
Happy summer. Pie is it is very America has taken the pie by storm, and we do more with pies than any other country, actually. At least that's what we read about. And so in our very brief research that we did today, I came across an organization. Did you know? I didn't even know this organization existed. before like 20 minutes ago.
Nope, me either.
We do a lot of research for this part of the show.
Well, in our defense, there's some things that are very historical, and then there's other things that's like America, 1850, fruit pie was invented,
right?
And that's what we have to go off of. But you found this interesting organization that we might look into to see how we become members.
Well, yeah, it's called the American Pie Council. Now, if you're an American Pie Council member, I want to welcome you to our show today. So we're going to have to look at this. But if you go onto the American Pie Council, their website says "Grab a slice of life," which actually sounds really fun to be a part of.
It's a good
But
motto.
they have the history of pie on here, and I'm going to read this.
Yep.
Because I really love this. We could talk about just some of the stuff as we go. But pie was made, pies have been around since the ancient Egyptians.
Everything's been around since the ancient Egyptians.
I mean, is there a civilization that has provided more influence over the cultures of the world than the ancient Egyptians?
God bless them.
I mean, they're amazing. Technically, God did not, but that's a Bible story or two. Anyways,
How dare you?
I'm a terrorist. Actually, he did, and then he didn't, and then he did again. Anyway, the first pies were made by the early Romans, who may have learned about it through the Greeks, and these pies were sometimes made in reeds, which were used for the sole purpose of holding the filling and not for eating the filling. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
So there was no crust.
No crust.
Now, if you ask me, I believe that the crust is probably one of the best parts of the pie if you make it right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the most important parts.
I agree. I mean, the filling's good, but I love a good crust.
Yeah.
The crust has to be there. The Romans must have spread the word about pies through Europe, as the Oxford English Dictionary notes that the word pie is a popular word in the 14th century. The first pie recipe was published by the Romans was for a rye-crusted goat cheese and honey pie. Listen to that again. Rye-crusted goat cheese and honey pie. Did you make your crust with rye?
I did not.
Okay.
Mine is not rye crusted.
No. Can you imagine what a rye crust
I also
would...
omitted goat cheese and honey.
You what?
I omitted.
Oh, you
omitted
omitted it.
Omitted.
So how would you feel about a rye-crusted goat cheese and honey pie?
Not a big goat cheese fan.
No.
So that would deter me a little bit. I'd try it, but
Yeah. Try anything once.
yeah, but I'm not a big goat cheese fan, so I'm not sure I would care for it.
Yeah, sometimes I like goat cheese. Do you ever eat do you ever have honey in your like Greek yogurt or anything like
Oh
that?
yeah. Yep.
I imagine that that's kind of what it would taste like.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still wouldn't like it.
So rye-crusted goat cheese. So that was one of the first pies that there's a published recipe for. So I'm so curious about that. I like want to make like a little tart.
You gotta
so
try it.
I'm actually think I'm gonna try it. The early pies were predominantly meat pies. Pies, P-Y-E-S, originally appeared in England as early as the 12th century. The crust of the pie was referred to as the coffin. There was actually more crust than filling. Back to this crust. I think I could deal with that. More crust than filling.
We ought to change it back to coffin instead of crust too.
I agree too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fill this coffin.
Yep.
Now, can you imagine just saying that to a rando?
Yeah.
I feel like you're doing what?
I'm like, listen, the ancient Egyptians made pie, and just leave it at that. Move on.
You know, that's like a good like social experiment. Like, let's say something to somebody and just have them walk away.
Or anytime anybody questions you, if you've learned anything from our podcast, if somebody questions you on anything, you just say, well, listen, back in ancient Egypt, this is how they did it. And they'll just take you at your word for it. Nobody's calling us out on it.
You out. No one's going to be saying, well, all I know is Egyptians and Pharaoh and hieroglyphics. Like that's so now you're learning more about ancient Egypt. So there was often the pies. This is the best part of this whole thing. This is what made me say we have to read this stuff. Often the pies were made using fowl being birds, right? And the legs were often. I'm sorry, this is like in my head. The fowl and the legs were left to hang over the side of the dish and used as handles.
We need to make some changes in our lives
I-
to make this happen.
You know what? Maybe this should be one of our Seriously Dough.
I think we could do it.
Make a fowl pie.
One of the things that I've always wanted to do is make a game pie, and so we were talking to the meat pies that came from England that are still popular there and stuff. They use venison a lot, but then they use the pheasants and other birds and stuff like that. I think we can make it happen this fall.
You know what? Actually, I have a friend who will often invite me on hunts to go do pheasant hunts.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll take one of those pheasants, and the legs are usually pretty hefty off a pheasant, like a hen or a cockbird, and I'm gonna hang that on the side. This is happening, folks.
Yep, we're gonna make it happen.
We're gonna make this fall. We are doing meat pies.
We'll have to look to see how they did it. Would they have been pasties? Because those legs, I mean, to hold like a pie pan and a whole pie, there's got to be a technique to that that they would use as handles.
I was thinking that too. If it's going to be a handle, then it's almost got to be like a brick, like really baked solid around that. Because if the meat's done properly, then it'll slide. The bone would slide right off. So we're gonna research this, and I promise we will have more answers for you for our meat pie episode.
We got our wheels turning there. Yeah. Definitely got sidetracked.
All right. So then, fruit pies or tarts were probably made first in the 1500s. The English tradition credits the first cherry pie, which is what you made this time.
That's what I made.
With Queen Elizabeth I.
Mine's an ode to Queen Elizabeth I.
Man, Queen Elizabeth, she did a lot of good for the world. Pie came to America with the first English settlers. The English colonists cooked their pies in long, narrow pans and called them coffins, like the crust in England. As in Roman times, the early American pie crusts were often not eaten, but simply designed to hold the filling during baking. It was during the American Revolution that the term crust was used instead of coffin, which based on our awkward potential conversation, that's probably better. So over the years, the pie has evolved to become what is today the most traditional American dessert. Pie has become so much a part of American culture through the years that we now commonly use the term as American as apple pie. Thank you, American Pie Council.
Yeah, I made the controversial statement on my social media post today when I posted a picture of my pie that pie is better than cake.
Why do you say that?
Because it just is.
Defend your point, man.
It is as American as apple pie, so therefore it just is.
So you're not. So when Marie Antoinette says "let them eat cake,"
she's wrong.
Let them eat pie.
It should have been pie with little birdie feet hanging out of it.
Do you think if Marie Antoinette had said "let them eat pie" instead of "let them eat cake," she would have kept her head?
Yes.
Yes, I believe so too.
Definitively,
yes.
According to the ancient Egyptians.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Yeah, some of you French scholars, like historical scholars, are like, that's not what that was about at all. I know that's not the point.
So we got to looking at things, and we were talking about pie competitions, right? Summertime fairs, things like that. We started talking about them. I mean, is there anything more objective than pie tasting? Like, it's according to that person's taste buds. And we looked it up to see how do they judge it and how can it be fair, right? And so you came up with some percentages from the Florida State Fair that they use. And
Florida State Fair, State Fair, you have to be an amateur baker. You cannot be a professional. You also have to use your own recipe, and you have to submit that recipe. This is how pie competitions work. I'm learning this too, because actually I'm having this desire to enter into the Wayne County, and I think actually the Seriously Dough podcast should enter into the Wayne County.
Are we amateurs at this point?
We are, because we're still using other people's recipes.
That's true.
And so we could develop our own recipe.
And then we'll no longer be amateurs.
True.
Dilemmas.
I tell you, I think we'll always be amateurs. Anyway, so the pie judging competition is so it goes. So here's the breakdown. The rubric is 10% of the score goes to the crust, 20% to the appearance, 20% to filling, 50% to flavor test. And that's it. And the judges' decisions are final. So you can't argue. Again, it's objective.
Yeah.
So it all depends. And here's the thing, like this is like how school works too. Like if you know your teacher,
Yep.
you can write your paper to your teacher's preferences.
Right.
So if you know who the judges are, then you can bake your pie according to the judge's preferences.
Right.
But if like you make, like I made a strawberry rhubarb pie, which is traditionally a sweet tart, and if the judge is not somebody who prefers a sweet tart pie, are they truly going to be able to judge your pie correctly? So I want to know how they pick these judges.
Right.
This could
Serious business. I mean, what is at stake is the first prize money, and
which
you
is,
can't mess around with that because it's big deal.
How much is it? First prize.
$150.
That's for a state fair pie.
Yeah.
You get $150. It costs you $15 to make the stupid thing.
Yep.
Not the stupid thing. The wonderful thing.
Wonderful, beautiful.
But then you get bragging rights.
Yeah.
Well, I won first place at the state fair for my pie. So appearance wise, you and I both did something simple. So let's talk about our bakes. I think we're at that point in the show.
Yep.
So you and I both made decisions in our appearances to do lattice work.
Yeah.
And so lattice work, for those of you who don't know, is sometimes for a pie you can just roll out the pie crust, you just flap it onto the top, and you pinch the sides, and you get it all set, and then you just vent the holes. And
right.
There's different creative ways that you can do that. Sometimes I've cut like a moose for Thanksgiving. I cut a little moose out of the pie, middle of the pie.
Yeah.
But with a cookie cutter.
Right.
Or like for apples, you can do like apple. Anyways, but we decided to do lattice work. Lattice work is when you take strips of dough and you overlay them in overlapping fashion. You weave them together,
right?
Pretty much. And so it's not that hard, but it looks really.
It's pretty.
It looks really good. So I'll show if you're on YouTube and you're watching, you can also look at our Facebook page and stuff. But you can see right there, that's my lattice work with one piece cut out. I chose thick lattice work. So my lattice work was about the strips were 1 inch thick, roughly, which made it really easy because they were easy to manipulate.
Yeah.
But yours, you started doing something different, which I.
Yeah, I messed up, which is why I ended up with the lattice work. I was going for a herringbone pattern, which is really pretty. It's just a different kind of lattice work, but I needed about double the amount of pie crust for the top that I had, and so I had to scrap it like midway and so I had to take it apart and then put it back together again, and so that's why mine's a little bit thinner. But I'm happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, you know what, Shane? I have to admit. You come out with these appearances that are like blow me away.
Yeah.
And then when I saw your lattice work on this pie, I was like, that does not look like Shane did his best work there.
That was angry Shane that just threw it together and let it be. Yeah.
So tell me about your cherry pie.
So my cherry pie is a combination of a bunch of different recipes. I use sweet cherries for it, just frozen sweet cherries. I didn't use the fresh ones, and you can use it whichever way. You kind of throw them in the sugar on the stovetop and with some cornstarch and melt it down, get some juice going and that, and it's pretty good. The crust, I used Paul Hollywood's recipe for his crust, and it was pretty simple. It didn't need refrigerated a lot. You use chilled ingredients for it, but once I had it mixed and incorporated, I pretty much rolled them out into the discs and refrigerated them for about 30 minutes or so, and then after the pie filling had cooled down, I assembled it, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. What are your thoughts?
This is so good.
Thank you.
You also put sugar on top of that.
Oh, yeah. So I did do that. I did an egg wash on the top, and then I just sprinkled some granulated sugar on, which gives it a nice kind of caramelized finish look to it.
Yeah, the whole thing's good. You know, one of the things that I always get frustrated with about like fruit pies is sometimes if they're not made well or made right, and the cornstarch is what makes this happen. Is the filling gets runny.
Oh yeah.
You know, and you cut a piece of the pie and you lift it out and all the filling like dumps out.
Yeah.
And then you put the piece of pie on the plate and then you gotta like scoop out the filling and put it, which is fine, and the filling's gonna taste good, but when it's consolidated and it's not leaking out all over the place, you get a nice solid flavor profile. It's not like the cherry pie is so the cherry filling is so dense and sweet and good, and I love the crispiness that the sugar on the top like gives it that extra crunch on the top of the pie. It's really phenomenal. That's really, really good. I'm sad that you only brought one piece.
Well, last time you made fun of me for bringing the whole cake, so I was like, I'll bring just one piece this time.
And so this time I brought the entire pie.
And you brought the whole pie this time. I was leaving and Medina said, you know he's going to bring the whole pie this time, right? And I was like, yeah, probably. The other thing that I did, which was a little tip that I saw that kept popping up on places, is one of the things, especially with fruit pies that are happen a lot of times, is you get the soggy bottom. Mm-hmm. And you want to avoid soggy bottoms in all areas of life. And but one of the ways that you can prevent that is by putting a baking sheet, or in my case, I put my pizza stone and I put it in the oven as it was preheating, and then you set the pie pan right on top of that, and that helps to heat the bottom of the pie pan quicker and kind of solidify that so that the juices and stuff don't run in and cause a soggy bottom.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, phenomenal job. That's not what I was expecting, and it was so much better than I had anticipated.
Thank you.
That was really good. I was expecting like giant cherries that I was going to have to like nosh through.
Okay. That's never a bad
not what's
thing
happening.
Either.
It's really good. So I made a strawberry rhubarb pie. I've never made a strawberry rhubarb pie before. No, well, I did I tested it last Sunday. And so the pie crust is a buttery pie crust that my mom passed along to me probably a couple of years ago. And there's an insane amount of butter. You can never go wrong with butter. We say that almost every single episode. So the pie crust is just a basic. I have it written down in a book. I don't even know where it originated. And then the filling actually. We had picked strawberries a couple weeks ago, so I used it for the pie I made last week. This week I just bought the strawberries from Walmart, but I did harvest the rhubarb last night in the pouring rain.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I dropped Liam off at Boy Scouts, and then I went to my friend's house and went into his. Like, he kind of brought me there, and he said, "It's in these weeds. Take whatever you want." And so I had to bushwhack my way to the rhubarb. I'm like, this is serious business. This pie did not come without personal cost, and so I did get the rhubarb last night straight out of the ground, and I made it last night. So I chopped up the rhubarb, and then it's a really neat mixture of regular sugar. The filling is strawberries, rhubarb, vanilla, cornstarch, brown sugar, white sugar. And it calls for orange juice, but I wasn't really into that because orange juice can be dangerous because orange juice will very quickly take over, like the orange flavor will very quickly take over a dish or a filling. I actually got this recipe from Sally's Baking Addiction, which I've talked about before. I'm actually going to try and connect with her because I'm using her stuff a lot, and I'd love to actually have a conversation with her a little bit, or even have her on the show sometime. So that was the filling. You let that rest for a little bit, and that's what we've got going on there.
This is for sure the first time that I've ever had strawberry rhubarb pie. Mm-hmm. I've had strawberry pie before, but not with the rhubarb. It's very good. I enjoy it. The crust is great, nice and buttery, like you said. The rhubarb's good. I always have a fear of rhubarb because my grandmother did not know how to cook rhubarb, and we would be forced to eat it as kids. Yeah. And it had the consistency of snot. Snot. Like, it was just slimy, and that I hated. That
sounds gross.
Yeah, it was gross. And so that is not like that here. Yeah. So it's very good. Really enjoy it.
Good. Yeah, I when I'm out for pies, I'm not usually partial to strawberry rhubarb, But I thought that because both those things are in season right now,
It tastes
I
like
thought
it tastes like June and July.
Yeah, that's exactly. But what really goes best with strawberry rhubarb pie is a scoop of ice cream.
Same with cherry pie.
Yeah.
I thought of it, and then I almost made a custard for it too, but I didn't know how it would transport and that. But yeah, that would take both of these up an extra notch.
Yeah, and well, that's just because the sweet and the creamy kind of goes in. But when I went to get the rhubarb last night, the people I got the rhubarb from, they said they have a family recipe for a strawberry rhubarb cream pie. And I looked at them and I said, I need that.
Yeah.
And she goes, I'm going to find it and give it to you. So
That would be great.
I'm looking forward to trying that out.
And we're both leaving the end, so that way when the podcast ends, we can just pick it up and enjoy it that way.
And masticate the rest of our pie.
Yes.
Yes, that's the right
That's
word.
right.
Yeah, we got the right word.
Double checking that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You macerated the cherries and I macerated the... Did you macerate the cherries?
I guess technically.
Yeah, I did that with the strawberry and the rhubarb too.
Yep.
I actually used more strawberries in it than it called for, and less rhubarb, because the rhubarb is so tart and it has the consistency of celery.
Yep.
Like if you're not so those are our bakes. Yeah, there we go. We're done there. So
we did good. I think we're getting better.
I think we are getting better at this.
Yeah.
Practice makes perfect. I finished my pie at 11:30 last night.
I got up at 6:00 in the morning and started mine.
Because
What's that tell you? That you can start it. It doesn't take a whole lot of time.
It doesn't
I think
take a lot
start
of
to
time.
finish, mine was a couple hours.
Yep.
And
that's about as long as it took mine.
Yep,
And
so
actually, the process, once you get used to, and this is with anything, like once you get used to how things go together and how things move,
you know
together,
what to look for.
Yeah, and I mean, even the pie crust I could do from memory now, I think.
Yeah.
And so that's it. So next time we are talking about
Blueberries.
and so we actually are not. Yeah, we're going to discuss what we're making, but we are going to be doing blueberries because it is now blueberry season. Actually, right outside the church where we are at right now, because we meet in my church to record this. I've got some high bush blueberries growing right now.
Ooh,
so hopefully, if the deer haven't eaten them all, or the bears, we have both of those here. But then I'm probably going to pick some of those and add some of those in there. But it is 100% blueberry season, early July. Right now, and so fresh
Blackberries ought to be coming on too. Soon.
We have blackberries in our backyard, and they are starting to really come in. And again, as long as the deer don't get them first, I will be packing some of those up, and maybe we'll talk about that. Fruits of the forest pie, that's a pretty good pie that includes all of that stuff too. So that's the episode for today. Thanks again for listening. Again, subscribe, share it with your friends, interact with us on Instagram and Facebook, wherever you get this, and give us a review and give us a rating. We'd really love for that. But thanks again for being with us, and have a great day.
See you later.